All right, the Waterloo City Council work session. Madam Clerk, would you read the roll?
Sure. Mr. Bozen?
Here.
Mr. Amos?
He's muted. I want to unmute himself.
Mr. Amos, you're muted right now. But we see him.
Here.
Thank you. Mr. Morrissey?
Here.
Mrs. Klein?
Here.
Mr. Foyce?
Here.
Mr. Greider?
Here.
And Mrs. Jewin?
Here. Need a motion to approve the agenda, please? So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. First on the agenda is discussion of new pedestrian median safety ordinance. And is our wonderful city attorney, Mr. Peterson, there to discuss?
He is. Do you maybe
Yeah,
wanna
I'll turn
see-
it over to you.
Oh, wait. Yeah, they can see you.
Yeah, and they'll see.
Okay.
Thank you. I've been asked to draft an ordinance relating to pedestrian safety in our city, and so I've done so. I asked this police department whether they could report to me any issues regarding pedestrian safety, and they indicated that in the past 10 years we had 10 pedestrian fatalities and 341 pedestrian injuries. I've researched similar ordinances. There's been one adopted in Des Moines recently, and they've indicated that pedestrian fatalities have increased in our country since 2009 to 2016 by a rate of 46%. And the largest increase is in urban arterial areas. They've also determined that if a pedestrian is struck by a vehicle traveling 30 miles an hour or more, they are 50% of the time they are killed, and that the National Association of City Transportation Officials Urban Street Design Guide from 2011 states that a median or an island should be at least 6 feet wide where pedestrians are present. Also, interestingly enough, in our city, Waterloo, Section 240 of the Waterloo Traffic Code says that pedestrians crossing a street in the business district shall cross in crosswalks only. And a business district is defined in the traffic code. I believe it says any area of any street where within a 300-foot stretch there are businesses on either side. That is considered a business district. And so our attention has been drawn to the Crossroads area where essentially everything on San Martin from Texas Street all the way down to arguably Amesboro is a business district. And there are very few crosswalks in that area. And so we've identified some safety issues. And so the ordinance I'm proposing, and as simply a first draft, and is certainly open to any input from the council, indicates that pedestrians are prohibited from standing, sitting, staying on a median or a ramp nose for any purpose other than to cross, if lawful, unless the width of the top surface, excluding the curb, is at least 6 foot wide. And then I've indicated which intersections around Crossroads mostly that would apply to. And then also, because of Section 240 of the Waterloo Traffic Code, we identified certain streets that may or may not have the exact specifications as outlined in paragraph B, where we've said in those seven streets, their pedestrians are prohibited from standing, sitting, or staying on a median or ramp nose for any purpose other than to cross the street, if lawful, regardless of the width of the top surface of the median or ramp nose along those streets or rights of way. So that's the ordinance I'm proposing, and I would be happy to entertain any questions.
Madam Chair Pro Tem.
Yes. Mr. Grider?
Yes. Mr. Peterson, how many of those fatalities have happened, fatalities or civilian injuries have been in the San Martin Business District that we're talking about right now?
I asked that question to the police department, and they sent me approximately 4 pages of information relating to the San Martin area. And to answer your question, I cannot tell you how many of those 10 fatalities were in that area. I don't think it was a majority of those 10, but as I understand it from talking to Officer McGee, that in order for the IT department to specifically mine that data, it would take hours essentially to determine the exact, for at least with regard to their computer information they possess, it would take them a long time. But it seems to me that the Department of Transportation for the state might have that data available. I simply haven't checked that source.
Sure. So, and I'm just going to guess that based on that, we also don't know about total injuries in that area either. So here's my thing is I represent this ward that covers this area, and I'm all for safety of pedestrians. I ran on making the city more walkable and bikeable and accessible, which means that we need to deal with things like sidewalks and crosswalks and where those are, especially in our very busy areas. I know people who have to walk in that area to get to Hy-Vee, and there are sidewalks few and far between. But what I'm concerned with is that this ordinance, I don't think, is really about safety. The way I'm reading this ordinance is that this is anti-panhandling, and that this is an attempt to move panhandlers out of an area where they operate. And I have concerns about that because, one, we know that legal restrictions on panhandling can get very tricky, and that courts have varying opinions on panhandling. In addition, I have concerns about punishing poverty because we don't like it. I don't like poverty either, but there's a lot of other ways that we can solve that problem other than punishing these people. So I have some concerns about how we're trying to deal with this issue, because I do think that we need to make the area safer and more walkable and more accessible. But I don't right now think that this does that.
Madam Chairwoman,
Yes, Ms. Klein?
may I chime in here? I'm the one that has been working with Marty on this, and I don't know, maybe the rest of you have been working too with him, I don't know. But I get calls from people who were out at Crossroads, and they honestly feel it is a safety issue. They said that they came around a corner and it was so abrupt, there are people on the green space, that one lady said she almost hit someone, and another lady said she almost got rear-ended because the car in front of her stopped. And there was commerce going on, you know, some money being handed out, and it was a busy day back in the days before the pandemic. And my whole thing on this is safety. Nobody wants to hit anybody. Nobody wants to have a car accident out there. It's a very busy area, that San Martin, and the entries into the mall area.
Other comments?
Madam Chair?
Yes, Mr. Morrissey?
Yeah, Marty, how many of these areas have the sidewalk infrastructure? How many do not have the sidewalk infrastructure?
Well, the focus of my research wasn't with regard to sidewalks, but having surveyed the area myself, I mean, there is little to no sidewalk in the area of San Martin, LaPorte, Crossroads Boulevard, Fleming Drive area. I mean, I might be wrong, but I saw and I understand there to be very, very little sidewalk in that area.
Well, and that's one of my misgivings with doing anything. If this is about safety and medians and pedestrian traffic, then I believe that those areas need to first get the infrastructure to make pedestrian traffic in those areas safe to begin with. And removing people from a median who may see that as a safety island for them, I think would defeat the purpose of safety. Now, if somebody is trying to use this kind of ordinance language change to deal with the issue like we're talking about, where people are standing there at a stop sign or whatever, to try to get some money from people through basically begging. I have a difficult time with that. I believe that if that's the purpose of the ordinance, then they need to label it the panhandler ordinance and have us vote accordingly, rather than trying to use this kind of mechanism as a guise for what their real purpose is. I think that is being genuinely dishonest. So I would be against this unless there was some kind of plan to deal with projects that are going to put infrastructure on these areas where they lack infrastructure for the pedestrians to use.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Mrs. Klein?
Well, I have to take umbrage with that we're trying to slide anything through. I was panhandled downtown and I was fine with it. A simple yes or a no, or you get around in your change and see what you've got for cash, which hardly anybody carries cash anymore. I don't mind that, but when you're doing some kind of a commercial activity on a busy intersection, I just think that's a recipe for danger. And especially, well, let's just face it, if you're an older driver and that distraction, or you're not prepared to stop quickly behind a car that stops to handle this. I mean, it's the same as, you wouldn't want little Girl Scouts out there selling cookies on the median either. It's just not a safety, it's just not a safe way to do any kind of a business. I think without sidewalks in an area of the median where there's so much traffic, this is absolutely a safety issue for me. I have no problem, nor did I complain about any time I was panhandled downtown. And
Madam Chair, sorry. Madam Chair Pro Tem.
Yes, Mr. Griner.
Right, but we know from the data that this isn't where these pedestrian things are happening. The data does not suggest that this is a safety issue right now. The data doesn't tell us anything. And I have to agree with Councilman Morrissey that I would oppose this in its current form until we start putting in the infrastructure, because in addition to penalizing poverty, which I think this ordinance will do just because of the way it's written, I also think it will make it harder for people, our constituents who live in this area, a lot of which are mine, who don't have a vehicle, to get to this commercial place where there is food, to get to this commercial place where many of them have jobs, to get to this commercial place that economically sustains this area. So I'm all for safety. I want that to be very, very clear, that I am for safety. But safety is sidewalks. Safety is crosswalks that are lit. Safety is those types of things. And so I'm more than willing to entertain the next time we have funding discussions, talking about making this place actually safe and walkable and accessible.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
this does
Is there
not,
anyone else that wants, and this is your third time, is there anyone else that wants to comment first?
Madam Chair.
Nick Boson.
Okay, Mr. Boson, I'm going to take him first, Mrs. Klein. Yes.
Mr. Amos also wants to say something.
Oh,
Jerome, you can go first.
Okay, been listening to all of this, and I'm listening, and I firmly agree with the fact that, yes, that may be a spot where someone could be potentially injured, but I also know that those individuals, they're not just standing in the medians, they're standing on the sides of the road and everything else to try and get help. For me, yes, they should not be there, but I don't think an ordinance is the way to do this. I mean, to me, a simple sign in the middle of it, if you don't want individuals there, is the way to go with this. So for me, I agree there should be more research done, and yes, we do need sidewalks out there. So there needs to be a larger conversation in my mind.
Mr. Boson.
Thank you. I believe Des Moines tried to ban panhandling and got sued for it, in a lawsuit over it. And the avenue to correct this was to write an ordinance such as this, banning people standing on them. In my opinion, this has nothing to do with crossing the road. This has nothing to do with safety getting to the restaurant, to your place of business, to a store. This has to do with people sitting on 5-gallon buckets begging for money at those intersections that you see every day, and people every day. So I don't see this as a safety ordinance. I see it as a panhandle, and I truly believe that we need to take a different look at this.
Okay. Anyone else want to comment before I go back to Mrs. Klein? Okay, Mrs. Klein.
Just to be clear, it hasn't anything to do with people walking. It doesn't have anything to do with people walking to their jobs or crossing the street. It's only got to do with any sort of comp that would be set up like on the park or the median or some set in the curb. To me, it's dangerous. No matter who's doing it, no matter for what purpose it's being done.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Mr. Morrissey.
Madam Chair, again, the councilperson from Ward 1 is confusing what this language of this ordinance was purported to be saying to accomplish what she wants, and that is a panhandler's ordinance. So
That is not-
I think she needs to call it what it is rather than trying to use language that our city attorney has put together regarding issues that have to do with pedestrian safety that is sorely lacking, basically because we don't have the pedestrian infrastructure there. Now, if the councilperson from Ward 1 wants to introduce a panhandler amendment, then she needs to do so rather than trying to backdoor it this way. I find that, and take umbrage at that. Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Mrs.
That's-
Klein.
One
That's
more
dishonest.
comment quick from the city clerk,
My
if I may. We are over time. That's my only comment.
my fellow being dishonest. This is what it is. It's a safety issue, no matter who wants to have any sort of a patrol project in the middle of.
I'd like to ask Mr. Peterson, are there any other ramifications of this ordinance other than trying to avoid having people stand on the meridian, median?
My understanding is that there are certain intersections that have individuals standing on them a lot. They happen to be soliciting donations. And to answer a couple points that have been brought up, it's true that the city of Des Moines and other cities have at one time had panhandling ordinances. And then in 2015, in the United States Supreme Court case of Reed versus Town of Gilbert, found at 135 Supreme Court, page 2218, they ruled against those ordinances on the basis of First Amendment issues. So now, as I understand it, nationally, cities are passing safety ordinances, in order to not ban panhandling outright. For example, our ordinance would not prohibit somebody from standing on the side of the road, as long as that was not violating any other pedestrian ordinances in a city. This ordinance only addresses the safety concerns of somebody, no matter what they're doing, standing on a median that is 6 foot wide or less. That's the majority of the area of the roadways that are covered by this ordinance. And so it is specifically addressing the most potentially hazardous areas for any pedestrian to stand. And so that's sort of what has evolved from what cities have done in the past. So to answer your question, this,
Okay, are there any other ramifications of this?
this will survive. This ordinance has the best chance of surviving a challenge on First Amendment grounds because it is not prohibiting speech in the form of solicitation of Girl Scout cookies or donations or anything else other than in a median in the middle of the road.
Thank you. Let me just add that for me, it is a safety issue because I've often been kind of surprised or tagged by a car in front of me that has stopped to donate or talk or whatever to that person. And it's been a little disruptive. So I can see where it's a safety issue. Would it be helpful to everyone if we asked Mr. Peters to get some of that additional information from the Department of Transportation as to how many incidents have occurred at these type of intersections?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Mr. Moore.
I would like to see planning and zoning come up and engineering come up with plans for infrastructure in those areas to address the need for that kind of infrastructure for pedestrian safety purposes.
You would want planning and zoning engineering to come up with a plan for sidewalks for all of those areas?
Yes.
Is Mr. Anderson there? Mr. Anderson?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, okay.
Yes, we've
Is
been
that
working with,
something that you can do reasonably considering your current workload?
we have been working with Intercog, on an overall, sidewalk infill policy as well as the trails, build out. So we can definitely, look at it for specific areas, see where that's at. I mean, obviously, as everything else, a lot of times it's easy to plan for it. It's harder to find the funding to prioritize it right away, but we have been recognizing the need for increased pedestrian movements in the Crossroads area.
Okay.
Mrs. Jewin?
So that's something you could bring to us, Mr. Anderson, then what at least currently is being planned?
Yes, yeah, I can get that forwarded to you to just kind of show you the plans that are out there now, and then we'll look at those even more closely.
Okay, if we can look at that, if Mr. Peterson could get the crash data from Department of Transportation, and Mr. Anderson, that's where you thought you could get that information more readily?
Yes.
Okay. If we could do those two things and bring it back to the council, are there any other requests of the council members for information?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Mr. Morrison.
one final thing I'd like to know, where there have been any concerns about people begging for money at any places if there are crosswalks in those areas.
Okay,
Thank you.
good. Any other comments for right now before we move on?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Mr. Boson.
real quick, I just have an issue with, like tonight, we've got 3 work sessions. They started at 4:40. It's 5:08. We haven't started our second work session. Got another work session that's involved in the finance meeting. We've got a lot more. We can't have a good dialogue when we cram this stuff in less than 30 minutes. So hopefully we can extend this out a little bit, even if we have a longer break in between, if it's a little shorter, okay?
Thank you, good suggestion. Yeah, allowing 15 minutes is usually not sufficient. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to the other work session topic, which is discussion of canceling extra yard waste collection fee. Mr. Bennett, would you address this?
Yes, and, Brandy Bennett, Public Works Division Manager. Hear me okay?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. So like I said, the discussion is for canceling the extra yard waste collection. Just to give you a little bit of background. If you are a individual who is subscribed to, for the curbside yard waste collection, for 4 times a year, you can pay an additional $3.10 a month to have those 4 extra collections. And one of the things that we are proposing is to go ahead and forego that additional $3.10 a month fee and just provide that collection in the normal yard waste collection for the curbside that people are paying. With that, you know, it varies throughout the year. Currently, we have around 1,200 individuals, our customers, that are signed up for it, for those 4 extra collections. But it's not uncommon for those individuals to drop, you know, either midway or towards the end of the season, so they don't continue to pay for that fee. We even have some individuals that even go clear to the extent of having their yard waste completely stopped, and we pick that up, which is another topic. But what we're proposing is just forgoing that additional fee at this time and providing that in the already yard waste cost.
Okay, and let me clarify. So that $3.10 a month entitles 4 extra pickups for the year. Is that correct?
Yeah, and if you would see the attachment that I had, it was just a flyer from 2019. And if you were to look at it, in June, July, August, and September, 1 week a month, on each one of those, you'd have 1 extra section.
Okay. And the financial impact is such that you could manage to continue the service with a problem?
Yeah, because some of the issues that we have is, you know, we've tried stickers and everything in the past for those individuals who are paying for that extra collection. We would give as far as what were the locations who was actually paying for it, but more often than not, when the drivers were going out and picking those up, we had a lot of individuals who were actually getting the service, even though they weren't paying for the extra collection, just because it was hard to implement. So, in just essence, to try to clean it all up and provide a better service, we just figured if we would just go ahead and do away with that additional fee and provide that in the normal fee that people are paying.
Questions to the council members?
Madam Chair?
Yes, Mr. Boson.
I appreciate that because I'm one of the people that are paying that extra fee. I just had a quick thing I wanted to ask Mr. Bennett, if possible, and it's along the same lines, if we could down the road schedule a work session to just go over where we're at with our recycling program with Republic, with if we're saving money on landfill tipping fees as more people are recycling. I know we entered into for $56,650 a month, and that's based on 11,000 cans. And last month we gave Republic 70,000. So if we're up to 13,592 pickups, that's great. But I just kind of like an overview if we could down the road.
Yeah, the original intent, and I believe it was Aaron brought it up, to try to do something like at a 6-month mark, which would be in about a month here. So that was our intent. It's a follow-up. And then we can kind of show some of the data too on what, how it's been going.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other comments? Is it the sense that you'd like to wait for that 6 months? Are you in favor of pursuing?
I would like, I guess one of the things I'd like, at least ways maybe, is just a recommendation, if you guys would like to do that, I'd like to go ahead and get something, a resolution put together to do that, if you guys,
Okay.
if everyone's in agreement with that.
Is everyone sensing support for this?
Okay,
A couple heads nodding.
so we'll work towards that, and we'll be getting something to you guys, to get onto the agenda.
Okay. It looks like
Madam Chair?
Mr. Morrissey?
Yes,
that you?
Kelly Pelkley.
Yes.
I'm sitting here listening, and I noticed then when certain people talk, the voice becomes tinny and not able to be understood. Is that a problem with the system, with me, and just me being audio, or people got their systems on, two systems on, or what's going on there that I can't understand parts of the conversation?
One thing that would help is if you're not talking, to mute yourself and then unmute yourself when you do wish to speak. That'd cut down on some of the reverberations.
Okay.
Mr.
thank
Morrissey,
you.
is that with all of the council members or just certain ones?
Well, I hate to interrupt people and say you're doing it. That would not really be too cool. But I will do that after I speak. I will mute myself. So thanks, Kelly.
Yep, no problem.
Okay, any other comments? If not, Mr. Bennett, I think I sense that we would support submission of change on the extra pickups and look forward to a 6-month report. Any other comments? If not, a motion to adjourn, please.
Motion to adjourn.
To adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned, and I will give you tell you that we're going right into finance. And if anyone has any comments, I've heard from a couple of you on our discussion. So please, you are encouraged and welcome to stay for the Finance Committee meeting. With that, I call to order the Finance Committee of the Waterloo City Council. Roll call, please.
Mr. Morrissey? Mr. Morrissey? He's probably muted.
Here.
There we go. Mrs. Klein?
Here.
Mrs. Jewin?
Here. Motion for the approval of the agenda and minutes, please.
I move to
Motion
be
to
approved.
approve the agenda and the minutes of April 13, 2020 as proposed.
I'm gonna second.
Okay. Favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Would someone take travel requests, please?
Madam Chairwoman, the
Yes.
first travel request is for officers Lemire, Law, Merzlock, Nichols, Roberts, and Steers to go to Field Training Solutions FT Basic School, destination Waterloo, Iowa, dates April 20th through the 22nd of 2020, amount not to exceed $2,065. The second request is Officer Aitchison, Bonwell, and Kramer to the Iowa Law Enforcement Academy, destination Johnston, Iowa, date April 27th through August 14th, 2020, amount not to exceed $27,450.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And before we get into the pre-authorization, Stokely, I have a question for you. Last month, we deferred action on pre-authorization for airport marketing. What's happened to that? I thought I was going to be on this month or this week. Did I misunderstand?
I think Michelle raising your hand to talk.
I think Michelle's out there to
Michelle.
address that one.
This
Okay.
is Michelle. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Yes.
So Keith and I spoke after the meeting. He did change his mind and think it was partly funded with the grant. We did some more research, and that grant does not expire right away, so I do not believe we will be bringing that Prius back until the market conditions change.
Okay, good, thank you. All right, then with that, I would entertain a motion to approve applications, please.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the following pre-authorization of spending over $1,000. First is the building department with the amount of estimated shipping handling, $4,950 for asbestos inspection at 5 Sullivan Brothers Convention Center. Next is the convention center with the amount of estimated shipping handling, $4,597.16 plus $99 shipping and handling for various food and beverage service items. Next is the convention center with the amount of estimated shipping handling, $28,589.10 plus $1,171.05 shipping and handling for catering, warming cabinets, and various food and beverage service items. Next is the convention center with amount of estimated shipping handling, $7,769 for the Hobart Legacy HL 334 commercial floor mixer. Next is the convention center, amount of estimated shipping handling, $5,267.06 for kitchen and storage shelving. Next is the convention center with the amount of estimated shipping handling of $15,600.20 plus $1,194.17 shipping and handling for additional pipe and drape, skirting, and expo tables. Next is the police department with the amount of estimated shipping and handling, $4,876.76 for professional liability insurance for Tri-County Drug Task Force. Next is the police department with the amount of estimated shipping and handling of $15,650 plus $917.54 shipping and handling for the GOI Decon Zone sanitizing system. Next is the police department with the amount of estimated shipping and handling of $1,763.49 for transcription dubbing for criminal investigations. Next is the sewer department with the amount of estimated shipping and handling, $1,850 for the annual inspection of elevator. Next is the sewer department with amount of estimated shipping and handling, $5,836 for repair kit for lagoon blower. And next is the sewer department with amount of estimated shipping and handling, $2,461.30 for 10 conference room chairs. And finally, traffic department with the amount of estimated shipping and handling, $5,364.24 for 56 Delco Voyager Marine RV dual purpose batteries.
Is there a second? Is there a second?
You can second it, Sharon.
Okay, I'll second it. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Could someone take the budget line items to be amended? Mrs. Klein, are you there? Kelly, have we lost Mrs. Klein?
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the following budget line items to be
She
amended.
gone.
First is a motion to approve the project budget amendment for the Organized Crime Drug
There she is.
Enforcement Task Force in the amount of $7,500 with federal revenue passed through the state of Iowa to be used for overtime as submitted by the police department. And next is a motion to approve the project budget amendment for Waterloo Police Department forfeitures project to spend $65,000. Additional revenue received as submitted by the police department. And next is a motion to approve the project budget amendment for the Waterloo Police Department forfeitures project to spend $25,000 additional revenue received as submitted by the police department.
Is there a second?
I second that.
Thank you. May I just ask, Michelle, are these all additional revenue based?
Yes, that's correct, Sharon.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Under other concerns, we'll kick that off, starting with the first item, discussion of changes to the structure and content of the Finance Committee. With that said, let me kick this off by saying that Michelle and I have had a lengthy discussion on what would work best, what our preferences are, and let me throw these out for your consideration. There were 4 things that were brought to us, and here's what, in response to those 4 things, here's our recommendation. First, that the pre-authorizations change to $5,000, that travel requests would remain as it is, which is anything over $100. 3, that the refunds stay as they are. And 4, that bill payment stay as it is right now. So that's our premise recommendation. To respond to any or all of those, if you would.
Madam Chair.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Morrissey? Yeah.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I have no problem with the last 3. I have a problem with the first one. I don't have an issue with moving it to $2,500, and I would like to see that movement first prior to any movement to a higher number. I just want to see how that works, what it does, before we move to the higher number. The other 3, the travel requests and the budget line items and the bills, I don't have any problem with those staying the same, because I really don't have any problem with the way the system is right now, quite frankly.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Klein, let me take the 2 members first, and then we'll open it up beyond that. Mrs. Klein.
The only thing I see is that the travel requests go up to $1,000. I think if it's already in their budget, and why are we picking it apart that way? I'd like to see us only have to approve at 1,000 or more.
Let me respond to that first, if I would. I understand the dollar amount, but sometimes the where the staff is going is sometimes something I'd like to question. Their method of transportation is something I would like, and I think $1,000 is pretty high. And Michelle, could you respond to that? Because we talked about this one, and it was our belief jointly to keep it at 100. Do you want to chime in on that one?
There would not be very many that would be $1,000 per person. My biggest concern is oftentimes departments are doing amendments from other line items to increase travel for trips. So when we say if it's in their budget, it's okay. I need more definition about what you mean in the original approved budget, or how do we do amendments? Because right now, no one sees those except the finance department. So if a department wants to do something that, or needs to pay for something that isn't currently in that right line item, we allow them to move money or between their line items all the time. So I think I'd need more clarification from you about how you would define that.
Okay, Mr. Bolson, I believe you had some comments.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm in favor of the pre-auth or 5,000 for the pre-auth, and I understand Councilman Morrissey's thought process on trying it out at 2,500 and moving up. I think $100 on a travel request is a little ridiculous. I truly do. It puts an extra burden on the department heads. I think if Michelle is looking for more clarification, we're actually looking at we, as a council, we approved their travel and training budget, at the budget session, that if it has to go outside of that budget session, or outside of that budget amount, I think that's where, she would come in and it would be called into question at that time. I think if we have a department head that's abusing, the travel request, if we have someone that's flying first class or staying in $500 night hotels, I think that needs to be addressed. And, that would be caught under the $1,000, threshold that Mrs. Klein. So I'm in favor of at least getting it off dollars, because I think that's a terribly small amount, especially if you have to run to Cedar Rapids to get parts, or you have to go and do something that costs a couple $100, like some of the classes that our people we send to, especially in the forestry department. It's just an added burden onto those department heads, and I'd like to see travel and training increased and pre-ops increased, and the rest of them I'm okay with.
What's your compromise, or is there one on travel to go to 500, or do you want to go to the 1,000?
Either one would work for me. I think on the $1,000, it'd have to be a pretty big travel request to bump over that. So I'm comfortable starting at 500 and then see how that works and moving it to 1,000.
Okay. And that could be similar, Mr. Morris, what you suggested on going from 5,000 to 2,500. This would be going the opposite direction, but it's kind of a compromise of going to 100 to 100.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Madam Chair, I guess I just want to return to the fact that our Code of Ordinances talks about standing committees. And we've had the amount of standing committees that are there for us to present to the public reduced down to just this one standing committee, finance, and it deals with monies. And it's not our money, and I'm referring to individual council people or staff people. I'm talking about the entire city that pays in taxes. So I know the word transparent many times rings hollow with people and as somewhat egregious, but in this particular case, that's what I stand on, that this is us on the finance committee being that first line that are showing to the public how monies that they put into the city coffers are being used. And the more we detract from that and the public's ability to see that, the less transparent we become. For that reason, you know, if we want to raise the pre-ops to 2,500, fine, but travel expenditures and training expenditures are something for people who are interested in that kind of information that has to do with how their monies are being spent, are going to take a look at, and they're going to see what their monies are being used at and spent for, other than salaries and benefits, which exceedingly get talked about.
Mr. Morrissey, you just succeeded in confusing me. I thought initially
Mrs.
you
June,
didn't want
Mrs.
any travel to be reviewed.
Mrs. Jewin, it's 5:32 or 5:33, and I would probably assume that this conversation is going to continue on, and so if you wouldn't mind.
Mr. Mayor, I think if you just give us 5 more minutes, we could.
No, I didn't understand what you said, Sharon.
Is it possible to pick this up next week so that you don't make you can think about what's being said and communicate? But it is 5:34 now, and we have to get a city council meeting started. And I don't see why you can't come back next week, Mrs. Honorable Mayor Pro Tem. Incredible, Miss Jewin. If it's possible to come back next week, that would be great, please.
Well, Mr. Mayor, and Madam Chair, a point of order. We were in the middle of a discussion, Mr. Mayor. A point of order is that you are not to interrupt, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Morrissey, right now it is 5:30, and I respectfully interrupt because the City of Waterloo, Iowa council meeting starts at 5:30. And this conversation, I would assume, is going to be more than just this particular part of it. So if I need to interrupt, if I need to intervene, I will take that leisure. We need to get our council meeting started. So I asked.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Mayor, if I can interrupt just a moment, we have to start no earlier than 5:30. If you would give us 5 more minutes, we can finish up the rest of our business. I will recommend that the structure and content be delayed for 1 week, but we still have 2 items on our agenda that we must finish.
Yes,
Is that
ma'am.
acceptable?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, then, if it's okay with everyone, we will continue this discussion on structure and content at our next meeting. Please put that on your.
Madam Chair, just one quick thing. You had not finished what you were saying, so I would hope that you would at least discuss that with me, what your response to what I had said, if that would be okay with you.
I will do that, Mr. Morrissey. Thank you. Okay, next
so
on
then
somebody. Mr. Morrissey,
Chair,
what?
I'd like to make a motion to refund the request in the amount of $136.40 for garbage collection fees billed in error on a property located at 3827 Trent Lane.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Then, Mrs. Weidner, I don't have the.
I have, Karen. The bill payment for April 2020 is $2,415,485.67.
Second.
Okay. All right. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Mrs. Klein?
Yeah, I second it.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.
Mrs. Jewin,
Yes, sir.
contrary to the comment that was made, I was asking with all sincere respect, so just so we know that, so it doesn't get turned the other way.
Certainly.
All
Not a
right.
problem. Not a problem.
It is now time for our 5:30-ish council meeting. Madam Clerk, could you please read the roll?
Mr. Bozen,
Here.
Mr. Amos,
Here.
Mr. Morrissey,
Here.
Mrs. Klein,
Here.
Mr. Foyce,
Here.
Mr. Greider,
Here.
Mrs. Jewin.
Here.
All right. And if you could please join me. You got everyone? If you could please join me in a moment of silence. All right, thank you. I am hoping Mr. Treelor is on the line today. Chief, could you please lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Make a motion to approve the agenda as presented in the minutes of the April 13th, 2020 regular session as proposed.
Second.
That motion. Hello? That motion has been made with the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? All right, thank you, council. The first item is a proclamation for National Community Development Week. And I will take the leisure of reading that. Is whereas the week of April 20th through April 24th has been designated as National Community Development Week to recognize and celebrate the Community Development Block Grant Program and the Home Investment Partnerships Program. Whereas since 1975, the CDBG program has provided annual funding and flexibility to local communities to provide affordable housing, a suitable living environment, and economic opportunities. And whereas since 1992, the Home Partnership Program created and preserved affordable housing for low-income families. And whereas over the past 5 years, our community has received more than $5,986,772 CDBG funds and $2,110,902 in home funds. And whereas both programs have suffered funding cuts over the years, now therefore I, Quentin Hart, Mayor of the City of Waterloo, designates the week of April 20th through the 24th, 2020 as National Community Development Week. So very, very important portion of our community. Mr. Peterson, you have some. Mr. Jones, are you on the phone somewhere? Is Mr.
Yes, I am.
All right, you got a couple comments you'd like to make?
Well, we were anticipating having some activities for this particular event, which would have been last week, but due to the pandemic, we'll hopefully try to reschedule some of those when time allows.
All right. And, okay. So thank you for that, sir, and continue to keep doing the great work. The next one, we have a proclamation for Arbor Week. And Paul, are you somewhere out there? I will read that. It says, whereas trees provide a pleasing environment in Waterloo for the benefit of our residents and visitors, contributing greatly to our positive image. And whereas the optimum restoration of Waterloo will require public participation and cooperation, resulting in an attractive community. And whereas the management of trees increases the benefits to our community through planting, maintenance, timely removal, and replacement. And whereas the Iowa legislature has designated the last Friday in April as Arbor Day throughout Iowa. Now, therefore, I, Quentin Hart, Mayor of the City of Waterloo, do hereby proclaim the week of April 19th through the 25th, 2020 as Arbor Week. And I don't think Paul is on, or Todd, I don't believe. All right, so we thank you for those proclamations. This is now time for oral presentations, your opportunity to address the council and mayor and staff on issues, conversations that are non-agenda related items. So I don't know if we have anyone on there today, I don't believe, but is there anyone that would like to address us on non-agenda related items? All right. Council, any conversations or anything you'd like to know about or talk about right now?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to bring up and for the council to consider and hopefully we can get a resolution submitted here in the next week or so dealing with small businesses that have licenses that are coming due, such as liquor licenses that are their annual ones, where these businesses have not been able to even use their current liquor license yet they have to go through and make the necessary kinds of actions that are needed in order to get a liquor license. And I had talked with one person, one business in particular, that's Joel Hundley from Steamboat Gardens, but he pretty much was saying that he and other small businesses were in a similar kind of boat where they have licenses coming due, but they just don't have the money to be able to afford to go in to it with the different kinds of inspections that they have to have. So he is requesting to have a timely filing kind of thing be implemented for those businesses through the city. But in my conversations with Kelly Felkley and her contacting the Des Moines division, it sounds as though any annual license is not subject to any kind of pro rata or any kind of taking away or eliminating, wiping off the temporary license dollar amounts. So I would hope that we could introduce a resolution asking the governor through the division to suspend or in some way prorate or even eliminate those fees for this year due to the pandemic.
I think that's a very good idea. And I've also received other council members reach out for it too. And we're also, in addition to the state, we're taking a look at seeing what we can do internally to push back. But yeah, we if you have some language and you and Kelly and Mr. Peterson want to work on some type of resolution, we can get that sent off to the state pretty soon, because folks are hurting. They do need some support, and they haven't waived a lot of those fees yet. So absolutely.
Will do.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Mayor?
Mayor?
Who are you calling on, Mr. Mayor?
I can't even tell from here who. Mrs. Klein had her hand
Okay,
up first.
This is Sharon. I would like to look, can we look at just delaying their payment? Not waiving it, but delaying it
Yes.
until after the businesses are open? Like maybe 2 months after they're open, their normal fee would be due?
So right now, with regards to the liquor license and some of those state issued licenses, those supersede what we can do. They have to pay the state. And so Mr. Morrissey's suggestion is to have us put together a resolution or proclamation asking for our state to delay having businesses pay those fees because they supersede us. And so that was a conversation.
And I would be in favor of asking the state to delay the fees. I'm not sure that I'm in favor of absolutely. So thank
Can you
you.
hear me? Can anybody hear me?
Right. I think delaying was the intent. The state is going to get their money, so it'd be wishful thinking they would waive it. But any type of delay or postpone for a little while to get people started, I think that's a good place.
I'd be in favor of that. Thank you.
All
Mr.
right.
Mayor?
Mrs. Klein.
I wasn't sure you could hear me. I'm really happy that Mr. Morrissey brought that up, because I sent emails to everyone today asking for a resolution next week on this very matter. The things that we could do locally are like fire inspections and grease trap inspections. We could do those inspections, but put a moratorium on collecting the fees until at least 6 days after this pandemic is manageable and we can open up our businesses again. So I'm all on board with that. All on board with it.
Yeah. All right. And I got your email. and I had been trying to take a look and talk to the different departments. First, I was trying to figure out, with regards to the email you sent, finding out who it was, because that was a lot of money. So I think we just figured out who that was on this call. And then I also have to reach out to the different departments and see exactly what's there. Some of these things that these businesses need have to be done, or their liquor license will be not accepted from the state. So it's a lot that goes into it, and we're just trying to figure out the best way to get that done and not slow them up. So absolutely on those suggestions. Anyone else with you want to bring forth to the council, to yourselves or to us, or? Yes.
Was there somebody else?
I was going to just add, we just, for those that are looking and that didn't see the press conference, the county number is up to 356 at this point, which is a long way from April 9th at being about 21, if I'm not mistaken. So that press conference, they just indicated that particular portion of it. So, our hearts go out to the families and people impacted, but also to our first responders and healthcare professionals and cashiers and folks that are still out there providing essential services. But that's all, Mrs. Jewell.
There,
Yes,
put it on TV so I could see it.
put it on TV.
Should be muted. Who isn't?
Is that better? Oh, okay. That voice sounds familiar. But all right, that's it, Ms. Jewin.
Okay, motion to close oral presentations, receive comments, and place on file.
Second.
That motion has been made with the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay, motion to approve the consent agenda with the addition of 1A1 $415,485.67. Receive, approve, and place on file.
Second.
That motion has been made with the second. Council, questions, concerns? Yes.
Would we like to pull number 3 off for discussion or not?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, just for the discussion portion, but,
Let's pull number 3 off for discussion, please.
okay, all right. So we are voting on everyone except item number 3. Madam Clerk, roll call vote.
Mr. Bozen?
Yes.
Mr. Amos?
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey?
Yes.
Mrs. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Foyce?
Yes.
Mr. Greider?
Yes.
Mrs. Jewin?
Yes.
Is that it? All right, thank you. Mrs. Jewin, number 3.
Motion for the approve a recommendation of appointment of Joel Fitzgerald to the position of chief effective June 1st, 2020, subject to passing background checks and satisfying the certification requirements of the Iowa Law Enforcement Academy.
Second.
That motion has been made with the second. Mrs. Jewin, may I start off, please?
Absolutely. Turn it entirely over to you.
All right. So the process for the selection of a police chief started last year, and it began with the advertising of the position. Then it came to screening of the qualified applicants. We may have had 1 or 2 applications of people that were not in law enforcement or meet the minimum qualifications. After that, we had telephone interviews, HR, mayor, and some of those that are in our police force. After that, we brought in 4 and we had in-person interviews. And the in-person interviews consisted of community members, council members, civil service member, HR, mayor, police union rep, a captain, and a lieutenant. After our meeting, the next meeting, maybe not in order, was actual union meeting with the individual candidates and their opportunity to ask questions or share concerns. After the union meeting interview portion, there were community presentations where each candidate was asked to share their philosophies. I can't remember if it was 90-day plans or year plans, but just their opportunity to talk to the community. Then from there, I had individual conversations with some WPD members individually. We are doing, I think, probably called about 8 to 10, upwards of 12 different people for reference checks outside of the 3 that were actually provided by Dr. Fitzgerald. We're also done a sheriff's background screening check last Wednesday or last week. It had a quick turnaround time on that. And then HR is still waiting for their background check information. I did send over correspondence to our police department through Captain Malis for the position. And so we arrived at Dr. Joel Fitzgerald, Senior, to be the next police chief. But I also want to say first, I don't know if you could have had more outstanding candidates than we had, and none being more so than also Major Joe Leibold. Major Leibold has had a chance over the past 6 months to hear every complaint I've ever had, but he's also his incredible character has shown through the process. He has been complete professional to work with, so I have to thank him for his leadership and service. And Lieutenant Corbin Payne also, who's now our civilian lieutenant events coordinator too, who I've had an opportunity to get to know as well. And then within the Omaha Sheriff Department, Mr. Wayne Hudson too. But incredible 4 people. And I also want to thank Dr. Fitzgerald for agreeing to join our team as well. He's on the phone, I believe, also. But council, any questions about this recommendation?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
I would just like to take this opportunity, and I'm sure all council members would agree, to thank Captain Leibold. He has been, or Major, I'm sorry, he's been just terrific in the interim, and I want to thank him publicly for all that he's done on our behalf.
All right. Thank you. Any other comments, questions?
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Morrissey.
Well, I would second what Karen says, and then I'd like to just add that I hope that I get a chance to meet with upcoming Chief Fitzgerald in the future, pending pandemic progress here. But I just had a brief conversation with him. And I've looked over all sorts of different information that has been sent to me from various parties, pro and con, and I look forward to voting for Chief Fitzgerald, and I wish him the best of luck. And that's it, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you, Mr. Morrissey.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
Dave Bolton here. I want to echo Sharon's comments. I want to thank Major Leibold for all the work he's done. He was an excellent candidate. I want to thank Lieutenant Payne, Captain Hudson. I want to welcome aboard Dr. Fitzgerald. I think he's going to bring a new vision to the department. I'm really looking forward to working with him, and I think our job as city council people is to make sure that we do everything in our power to make him a success and to make the Waterloo Police Department a success each and every day.
Thank you, Mr. Bozen. Mr. Foyce.
I just echo everybody else's comments with our internal candidates as well. They've done such a wonderful job for the police department, and I appreciated Dr. Fitzgerald giving the opportunity to have a good discussion with him and learn a little bit more about him, get to ask some tough questions, and some honest answers from him. So I look forward to what he's going to bring to our city.
All right, thank you, Mr.
Mr. Mayor.
Foyce. Yes.
I would like to echo all of my colleagues in their positive comments about Mr. Leibold and all of the excellent qualifications the candidates had. And I too wish Dr. Fitzgerald the very best as he comes here. I hope, my best hopes are for the city of Waterloo and for new leadership to take the reins and see what we can do here.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Klein.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, is that Mr.
Mr. Mayor.
Ryder? Who is that?
Amos.
Mr. Amos.
just wanted to thank you for giving me the opportunity to sit on the panel that actually had the opportunity to interview all four of the candidates. And they were all, like you say, excellent candidates. And from a standpoint of Dr. Fitzgerald, I do firmly believe that he is someone who will take Waterloo and make it an even better community than it already is. So, Dr. Fitzgerald, after this vote, I'm just going to tell you, welcome aboard.
All right.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Grider.
to round us all out, I also would like to echo the sentiments of my colleagues for all of the applicants. And I know this was a hard decision, I'm sure, but having spoken with Dr. Fitzgerald and hearing about his qualifications and again asking him the hard questions, which is what the council's elected to do, I'm very excited to have him on board. I'm very excited about his vision for the police department and the overall vision that he brings to Waterloo.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Grider. All right. Madam Clerk.
Mr. Amos?
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey?
Yes.
Mrs. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Foyce?
Yes.
Mr. Grider?
Yes.
Mrs. Jewin?
Yes.
Mr. Bozen?
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Dr. Fitzgerald, are you on the line?
I am.
Would you like to say anything?
I would. I'd like to thank all the council members for their very, very positive comments. I know that I will affect a positive change within the department and look forward to working with each and every one of you. Many of you mentioned having the opportunity to speak with me and ask questions, and what you see is what you get. As I said during our conversations, I don't shy away from answering the tough questions and taking the tough assignments. And I just look very much forward to working with you all. And for those that I haven't had the opportunity to sit down with or to have a long conversation with, Mayor, if you would be so kind to share my information with them. Anything that I can do leading up to me officially becoming part of the city's management team, I will certainly do to appease any curiosity or fears that they may have. But I look very much forward to working with the men and women of Waterloo Police Department. And I think that you are in for a pleasant surprise.
Okay. All right. All right. Thank you, Dr. Fitzgerald. Thank you, for joining the team as well. So, all right, we have, do we have anything else? We have public hearings. Would somebody take number 2?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Morrissey.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Morrissey.
I'd like to make a motion to receive and file proof of publication, notice of public hearing on the fiscal year 21 one-year action plan for CDBG and home funds.
Second.
That motion has been made with the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The hearing is now open. Is there anyone on the telephone or cyberspace that would like to comment on the home funds and CDBG?
Mr. Mayor?
Mrs. Felkley, are there any comments on file?
It does say that there are comments on file. Mr. Jones, do you have those comments?
Yes, there was one additional request that came in within our 30-day comment period, requesting assistance to abate some of the smaller structures, primarily garages in neighborhoods, primarily the We Care neighborhood.
Right.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Amos.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Amos.
I was wondering, I had talked with Director Jones about that particular letter. I believe it's the We Care neighborhood.
Mhm.
And I was just wondering, they are seeking funds, and I was just wondering, is that a motion that needs to take place for that to happen? Or is it just something that can be moved onto the actual plan for the year?
So, so right now they want the money themselves as a neighborhood organization, or they want a certain amount of smaller units taken down? And is Mr. Jones aware of which particular units?
Mr. Jones should be able to explain it a little bit better, I believe.
All right, Mr. Jones.
Yes. So whenever requests like that comes in, we primarily try to focus attention where the request came from, primarily the We Care neighborhood. But that probably will not exclude other neighborhoods that might have similar needs and or desires. But we will make a special effort to address the needs coming from those neighborhoods. A lot of these requests, we work in conjunction with referrals that come from our code enforcement officers. So we've had some interest in the neighborhood, and that's where we'll be focusing.
All right. So did they put in, before your deadline, was there a grant application put in by the neighborhood, and then it wasn't funded, and then they're asking for it to be funded? Or is this an ask for you to take a look at working with them to tear down some of these smaller structures?
Sure. Mayor and Council, the way our process works is at the end of December, we invited non-for-profits, neighborhood association individuals to make requests for the CDBG and home dollars. And we had our first public hearing, citizen input meeting on January the 14th. After that, we pulled together our subcommittee, which was comprised of staff and a couple of council members, a couple of board members. And we came up with our first recommendation that we published February 28th. And upon review from the board after that, we established a 30-day comment period at the end of February, which gave us all of March. And that's when the request from the We Care neighborhood came in during that 30-day comment period. So
to Mr. Amos' question, is there, because what I'm wondering, and this is in regards to the comments that was on file, what I'm wondering is if someone came in after that particular period that didn't file, and then we turn around and reallocate dollars to an organization that didn't apply, what is that precedent? So if that does, create a precedence we didn't have. So what I'm wondering, because there are monies that you do have or set up for demolition of those types of things, is it possible for you and Councilman Amos and whoever the at-large to be able to work together to come up with the list and maybe help with those concerns?
Yes, we will also bring in code enforcement officers to kind of help us begin to identify specific properties that might fit the criteria, and the homeowners might meet the eligibility requirements. So even though we will be concentrating in that area, it would not preclude us from going outside of that area.
Okay. All right. That was a question.
So I guess, yeah, Mr. Mayor, the question that I have is so even though those dollars weren't there when we did the original sit down and divided them out, Director Jones, you have the ability to pull from one of the other funds to direct these dollars in that direction, correct?
That's correct. And we anticipate pulling from the larger pool of CDBG dollars that we use for rehabilitation. The amount that we propose is $30,000, which would shrink our goals of rehabilitation by 1 unit.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, and the other thing, Mr. Mayor, one of the things that when I was looking at the letter that the individual sent, it talked about how cleaning up the neighborhoods and knocking down some of these places would help improve property values. And I know that's one of the things that we are looking at is trying to improve property values on the north end of town.
Absolutely. North End and all of them. But yeah, I think, it's hard to put all that work into your houses and then you come back out your door and you see an abandoned garage or a wayward house. So yeah, you're absolutely correct. And whoever was the author of the letter as well. So if that's all for the comment portion with regards to what was placed on file, I think that would be all for the hearing.
Motion to close, Mr. Mayor.
Can I get a second?
I'd like to make a motion to close the hearing and receive and file oral and written comments and the recommendation of approval from the Community Development Board.
Second.
That motion has been made with the second to close the hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The hearing's closed.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt a resolution approving the proposed funding recommendations set forth by the Community Development Board for fiscal year 21 one-year action plan for CDBG and home program funds for the Waterloo Cedar Falls Consortium.
Second.
That motion has been made with the second. Mr. Jones, before I turn it to council or people on the line, do you want to comment or you?
Yes. Again, we would like to thank our subcommittee who volunteered their time to help us put this together. As you all know, in light of the pandemic we are faced with, trying to figure out the best ways to utilize these dollars is always a challenge. And regarding the CARES Act funding that's coming to Waterloo, we have no less than 4 to maybe 5 different webinars and conference calls this week to kind of help us with some direction on the different eligible activities and possibilities that we can utilize those funds for. So as we get through those conference calls and webinars, we'll be reporting back to the council for further direction.
All right. Thank you. Council, do you have any questions? Madam Clerk?
Mayor?
Yes,
Mr.
Mr.
Moore.
Morrissey.
Mr. Mayor, I had a chance to talk to Mr. Jones today, Director Jones today, about several different things, such as why is CF included in this, and he answered my question very astutely, as he always seems to do. And I was particularly in one of the attachments, the large one, page 40 talks about barriers to affordable housing, there's only about 5 paragraphs in there, but they basically say it all. I just wish that heading was included the words, not just affordable housing, but also decent and maintained housing.
Right.
And it includes the city of Waterloo stepping up and making some changes, I think, in some of the language that we have as part of our code of ordinances. Next, I had my question answered by Director Jones again regarding what the ESG funds are and why we don't get them. And I was particularly interested in finding out how and what part the community development block grant can play in making sure that we have warming center funds available this next coming winter, so that we avoid the kind of problem that we had just here in the last few months. And finally, I was taken back once again by the documented fact in here that was stated several times by Director Jones regarding 50% of Waterloo households are in a low income category.
All right. Shocking numbers. All right. Thank you, Mr. Morrissey. Thank you, Mr. Jones.
Thank you.
And your staff as well. Without further ado, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Morrissey?
Yes.
Mrs. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Foyce?
Yes.
Mr. Greider?
Yes.
Mrs. Jewin?
Yes.
Mr. Bozen?
Yes.
And Mr. Amos?
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Number 3, please. Mr. Foyce.
I'd like to make a motion to receive and file proof of publication of notice of public hearing, and that is for the Ainsborough Avenue Improvements Project from Blackhawk Road to Downing Avenue. IDOT project number STP-8155, parentheses 757, parentheses -86-07.
Second.
That motion has been made with the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Is there anyone on the telephone or out in cyberspace that would like to comment on this particular item? Going a second, third, fourth, and fifth time?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
like motion to close the hearing.
Second.
That motion has been made with the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The hearing is closed.
Mayor, I'd like to make a resolution confirming plan specifications, form of contract, et cetera, and I'll proceed.
Second.
That motion has been made with the second. Council questions? Madam Clerk?
Mrs. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Foyce?
Yes.
Mr. Greider?
Yes.
Mrs. Jewin?
Yes.
Mr. Bozen?
Yes.
Mr. Amos?
Yes.
And Mr. Morrissey?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to receive and file and instruct city clerk to read bids.
Second.
That motion has been made with the second. All in favor?
Aye.
All
Opposed?
right, our estimate was $210,075. Our first bidder was Lodge Construction Incorporated of Clarksville, Iowa. Their bid amount was $299,321.40. Our second bidder was Chick-fil-A Excavating Company of Dubuque, Iowa. Their bid amount was $317,181.80. Our third bidder was Veith Construction Corporation of Cedar Falls, Iowa. Their bid amount was $329,897. And our final bidder was K. Cunningham Construction Company Incorporated of Cedar Falls, Iowa. Their bid amount was $336,114.25.
Thank you, Mrs. Clerk. Mr. Foyce.
I'd like to make a resolution approving award of bid to Lodge Construction of Parksville, Iowa, in the amount of $299,321.40, and approving the contract bond and certificate of insurance in conjunction with the Amesboro Avenue Improvements Project.
Second.
That motion has been made with the second. Madam Clerk.
Mr. Foyce,
Yes.
Mr. Greider,
Yes.
Mrs. Jewin,
Yes.
Mr. Bozen,
Yes.
Mr. Amos,
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey,
Yes.
and Mrs. Klein.
Yes.
Right, thank you. Number 4, please.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Amos.
Number 4 is a motion to receive and file proof of publication and notice of public hearing, and that is a request by the City of Waterloo to vacate a portion of public alley located within Block 18 of Linden Place, former Lafayette School located at 2265 Lafayette Street, and rescinding ordinance number 5145.
Second.
That motion has been made with the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The hearing is now open. Is there anyone in cyberspace or the telephone that would like to comment on this particular item? Going a second time.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Amos.
I'd like to make a motion to close the hearing and receive and file oral comments and recommendations of the Planning, Programming, and Zoning Commission.
Second.
That motion has been made with the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The hearing is now closed.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to receive, file, and consider and pass for the first time an ordinance approving a request by the City of Waterloo to vacate a portion of public alley located within Block 18 of Linden Place, former Lafayette School located at 2265 Lafayette Street, and rescinding ordinance number 5145.
Second.
That motion has been made with the second. Council, questions on this item? No comments on this item?
This is Anderson, Community Planning and Development Director. So there's just an error in the legal description we're correcting. So if we could suspend the rules and pass it, it would be great, since we have done that before.
All right. Thank you. Madam Clerk.
Mr. Greider,
Yes.
Mrs. Jewin,
Yes.
Mr. Bozen,
Yes.
Mr. Amos,
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey,
Yes.
Mrs. Klein,
Yes.
and Mr. Foyce.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules.
Second.
A motion has been made with the second. Madam Clerk.
Mrs. Jewin,
Yes.
Mr. Bozen,
Yes.
Mr. Amos,
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey,
Yes.
Mrs. Klein,
Yes.
Mr. Foyce,
Yes.
and Mr. Greider.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to consider and pass for the second and third times and adopt said ordinance.
Second.
That motion has been made with the second. Madam Clerk.
Mr. Bozen,
Yes.
Mr. Amos,
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey,
Yes.
Mrs. Klein,
Yes.
Mr. Foyce,
Yes.
and Mr. Greider.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Could someone take 5, 6, and 7, please?
Mr. Mayor,
Mrs. Klein.
number 5, resolution accepting a request by XL Cold Farms LLC for the final plat of Audubon Hills Second Edition to allow for the development of a 20-lot residential subdivision located east of 1866 Red Tail Drive, and authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute said documents. Number 6 is a resolution approving an application to the Black Hawk County Metropolitan Area Transportation Policy Board for surface transportation block grant program funding in conjunction with the Hess Road Reconstruction and Complete Streets Project. Number 7 is a resolution approving supplemental agreement number 01 to the professional services agreement with Stanley Consultants, Inc. of Des Moines, Iowa, in an amount not to exceed $28,643 in conjunction with the Park Avenue and 11th Street Bridge Replacement Feasibility Study, and authorizing the mayor to execute the document.
Second.
That motion has been made. That motion has been made with the second. I think we have, Mr. Jewin, if you don't mind, can I see if there's public comments first?
I'm sorry, certainly.
Oh, no, you're fine. Is there anyone on the phone or cyberspace that would like to speak to 5, 6, or 7? All right. Ms. Jewin.
I just have a couple questions on number 5, and just wondering if we know what the breakdown, Mr. Anderson, if we know the breakdown of family versus duplexes, and 2, if we know the size of the facility.
Right. I think Mr. Johnson is on the line too, right? So
I am, Mayor.
all right. So just so folks know you're available, so you or Noel want to take this one.
So Sharon, I might be able to answer that first question, and that was about duplexes. And duplexes, as this was developed, this is the second phase, but as this was developed, we had meetings with the neighbors, and as part of those reached some agreements. And one of those agreements were that duplexes would only be allowed on the north side of that new road, so abutting Highway 20. No duplexes would be allowed on the other side. Now, whether those will actually be built or not, they may just be single-family homes, but the duplexes will only be those that abut Highway 20. Does that answer that first part, Sharon?
Is that half of them then, Mr. Johnson?
Lots 1 through 10.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Mr. Anderson?
And I think your second question was size requirements, is that correct?
Yes.
And if I look through that, it's part of the deed of dedication, which single-story homes have to be 1,500 square feet. If it's a twin home, they have to at least be 1,200 square feet per side, so 2,400 square feet in total.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, council, questions 5, 6, and 7? Madam Clerk?
Mr. Amos?
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey?
Yes.
Mrs. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Foyce?
Yes.
Mr. Greider?
Yes.
Mrs. Jewin?
Yes.
And Mr. Bozen?
Yes.
All right, thank you. 8 and 9, please.
Mayor,
Mr. Bozen.
I'd like to adopt a resolution approving a professional service agreement with INS Group, Inc. of Waterloo, Iowa, in the amount of $29,750 in conjunction with the truck wash area improvements project for the City of Waterloo Public Works Facility, and authorizing the mayor to execute the document. And number 9, adopt a resolution approving a reimbursement agreement with the Salvation Army for sidewalk reconstruction located on properties southeast at 55 Franklin Street and 415 7th Street, and authorizing the mayor clerk to execute said document.
Second.
That motion has been made with the second. Is there anyone on the line that would like to comment on these two? Council?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Morrissey?
well, in regards to number 9, it just brings up an issue that I've had people talk to me about, and that is the cost of sidewalk construction, especially for low-income people. I understand that this is from the Salvation Army, but I just bring that up as I believe that should be a council discussion going forward.
About sidewalks and who pays for them?
Yes,
Okay.
indeed.
All right. No, relay that message to Jamie, and we could follow up tomorrow, at least talk about it. So I think we already did the ones for this year, but definitely we need a broader conversation. Madam Clerk.
Mr. Morrissey,
Yes.
Mrs. Klein,
Yes.
Mr. Foyce,
Yes.
Mr. Greider,
Yes.
Mrs. Jewin,
Yes.
Mr. Bozen,
Yes.
and Mr. Amos.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion been made with second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Stay safe. Bye-bye.
Same.